Welcome to the BX Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Fowler, and we have another exceptional guest to share their insights and area of expertise with you on the show. Now, just before we jump into the episode, make sure you tap that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app to get more BX Podcast episodes right there in your pocket. Now, if you would like to find out more about BX and attend a meeting either in person or online, head over to bxnetworking.com/locations. That's bxnetworking.com/locations. By his 35th birthday, Mike Michalowicz had founded and sold 2 multi-million-dollar companies. Confident that he had the formula to success, he became a small business angel investor and proceeded to lose his entire fortune. Then he started all over again, driven to find better ways to grow healthy, strong companies. Mike has devoted his life to the research and delivery of innovative and impactful entrepreneurial strategies to you. Today, Mike leads 2 multi-million-dollar business ventures as he tests his latest business research for his books. He is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and business makeover specialist on MSNBC. Mike is a popular main stage keynote speaker on innovative entrepreneurial topics and is the author of All In, Get Different, Fix the Next, Clockwork, Profit First, Surge, The Pumpkin Plan, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, My Money Bunnies, and I have to say my personal favorite in there is definitely Profit First, which is used by hundreds of thousands of companies across the globe to drive profit. Mike, it is a pleasure to welcome you to the BX Podcast.
My God, I think we lost every listener. I was starting to fall asleep with the amount of books. Thank you for sharing that. It's a joy to be with you, Ryan. I appreciate this.
It's so good to have you on here. I'm going to explore so much with you over the next sort of half an hour or so. But before we get into any of that, I want to hear your story and share with the listeners your story of what it was like before you started those first 2 businesses that you then went on to sell. What was that journey that got you into business originally?
You know what? I think what's interesting, I never aspired to be an entrepreneur because a lot of the stories I hear out there is like, oh, I was an entrepreneur when I was a kid, or my family were entrepreneurs and I came into it. I had no aspiration. I wanted a traditional job, one job you have ideally for your entire life. The thing was, after I finished university, I couldn't find the job. I found a job, but it wasn't satisfactory. And one particular night, I was selling computers. I went out for drinks with another fellow who worked there, and I was lamenting the work I was doing. Like, I'm doing all this stuff, and the guy who owns this business is back behind the curtain, smoking cigars and counting money. I want to be that guy. So it was almost a drunk bet. It kind of was. I said, I'm going to start my own business, and I did. What I also did is I burned my bridges. I told the old boss, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to start my own business. I deserve this. And he said, good luck, kid. I didn't realize he's not, there smoking cigars, counting money. He's trying to figure out the accounting. He's trying to build partnerships, trying to maintain payroll, manage people, hire, fire. There's so much I didn't get. It was overwhelming and terrifying. But once I was in it, I'd burned my bridge. There was no going back. And through probably mostly fear, but also the necessity to make this work, I worked ridiculously hard and started finding some things that worked, many things that didn't, but made my way through as an entrepreneur. And I fell in love with entrepreneurship in the process. I love it. So cool.
And through that journey, that the mindset that you've come out of college, or in Australia's case, university, what was that mindset shift like from company mindset to switching to this entrepreneurial brain of I'm going to go and start my own business? How does that look in actual reality of how it plays out?
Well, I think the big thing is dependency. Like in the business mindset, working for someone else, I knew a check was coming, or at least I thought I knew a check was coming. It happens that small business can't afford to make payroll. I didn't even think that was a reality. But there was this security that no matter what I did, a check was coming. When I became an entrepreneur, there was no security. No matter what I did, I didn't know if a check was coming. Even if I worked so hard and did amazing things, there was no assurity a check was coming. That peaks and valleys, the hopes, the scares, that was really difficult to navigate. the financial insecurity that entrepreneurship brought about. That's in part why I wrote Profit First, was to navigate that. But I only figured it out later on in life. Dealing with that insecurity and that fear was probably the biggest thing I needed to master, is probably too strong a word, but figure out for me to be a competent entrepreneur. I needed to be confident in what I was doing.
And in this journey of shifting, transitioning, starting this first business, what was the business and what was the process like of scaling it to a level where it was able to sell for a multi-million-dollar figure?
Yeah. The first business was in computer systems. I was the computer guy. That's what people say. Oh, Mike's my computer guy. What I did was sell computer services, setting up networks and stuff. First, it was just me and a partner. And I had a partner who joined me. And then later on, we hired our first employee, and we had all these difficulties and challenges. We were never making adequate money to pay ourselves. The breakthrough moment came when I realized I need to stop being a generalist, stop being the computer guy, instead be the specialist for an industry. And for us, it was hedge funds. I didn't even know much about them. I still don't really understand hedge funds totally nowadays, but I understood that I could cater to their needs if I spoke the language, if I understood their uniquenesses. It's interesting, the needs they have is maybe 2 or 3% different than other folks. But in every industry, once you know that 2 or 3%, my God, you are so superior to them than any of your competition. So once I started catering to hedge funds, I built a reputation in the industry. That started growing the business very quickly. And then a private equity group bought the business. I think an ironic part is, even though I was growing quickly, I still hadn't figured out profitability. So when I sold the business, it was not sustainably profitable. It was making a lot of money. And the people who bought it, they were smarter than me. They figured out how to make it profitable. But I did believe that, I'll make my money by pumping and dumping businesses, grow. And I found out that's not the truth either. I had to learn how to be profitable. And I did with my other businesses ultimately, but not with that one.
And just taking a bit of a reflection look back at that business, if you were to still look at it today from the perspective you have now of profitable businesses, what would you have done to change that?
Okay, it sounds kind of self-serving. I would have implemented Profit First if I knew it existed. Because here's the reality behind it. Every dime that came in, every dollar that arrived, I was putting it back into the business, which actually means frivolously spending. When people say they're putting money back into their business, I ask them, what quantifiable metrics do you have? What's the return, the ROI on this money? And they don't know. So I'm like, you're not putting money into the business. You're frivolously spending money, but you're giving a soft term. And that's what I was doing. Every dollar I made, I threw back into the business without an understanding of how that would serve the business, and it hurt the business. When today, taking my Profit First and hiding away from my business, I'm forced to live off of what's truly available. And it just changed my whole perspective. I would have done that. Ironically, I would have made a hire sooner too. I hired a technician, someone to do the work. And that was a mistake also. I also thought maybe I should hire someone that can sell the work. That's not a mistake. The first hire I think every business should make, and I would have, is hire a personal assistant. When I can alleviate the distractions I have, the necessities, but distractions, to focus on the talented work, the implementation services, and the sales, I would have availed myself a lot of time. But I was the guy doing the minutia, and I never thought about hiring a personal assistant. I would have started there too.
That's interesting. And when you started your second business, is that something that you implemented straight away, or was that a later learning?
Later learning. It took me about 2.5 businesses in. It was during that second business, halfway through it, I was like, my gosh, I should have a personal assistant. When she came, her name was Patty. When she came on board, it started to transform everything in my business. The biggest thing it transformed, and this was also unexpected, was I learned true delegation. I used to do what's called abdication or micromanagement. Abdication, I'd just say to someone, go out and do work and get it done. And I wouldn't give them any direction. And I'd be frustrated that they didn't do what I wanted them to do, but I didn't tell them. Micromanagement was, I should have been doing the work myself. I kept on telling them, do one task, come back to me, get my direction, do the next task. Basically, I was acting as the one brain for many hands, and that doesn't work either. When Patty came on board, I learned what true delegation was, which is the assignment of outcomes. Here's the achievement I want us to have, whatever it may be. Let's agree to this is reasonable or not. And then, Patty, you figure out the path to get there. We have best practices. By all means, use those, but find the path to get there. And you have the freedom to navigate any way to get there that will get you there effectively. I started to learn that process. I realized that's the greatest way to empower others. So I was empowering Patty, I was learning to delegate, and from that point forward, every business I've been involved in, the first hire is always a personal assistant.
That's really interesting, because some people see a personal assistant from the perspective of being a luxury, not a necessity. So
Yeah,
I love that you flipped that script for people.
it's funny, Ryan. I at a conference recently, it was a large group of people. I mean, literally 1,000 or more people. And I went to the audience. I said, "Who in here has a personal assistant?" I'd say 10% of the hands went up. Hundreds. I said, "Just to be clear, who does not have a personal assistant? Please raise your hand." It was the majority. I said, "Keep your hands up. If your hand's raised right now, you are the personal assistant." I want to be very clear about this. That work is still getting done, but it's on you. And all the things that you should be doing for the organization is not happening because you're doing these roles. And then the feedback is, "I can't afford a personal assistant. I don't have that money to hire a full-time person." Like, whoever said a full-time person? You can hire a virtual PA for 3 hours a month. Just let's get one task off your plate. Let's learn the discipline of delegating, then the next, and then the next. And you'll start becoming a much better manager as a result.
And that gives you the mental capacity to free up space. And now that we're kind of on this topic, which I wasn't expecting to get to, but where does mental capacity play a role in being able to outsource, delegate, move tasks off your plate?
Yeah, the fewer things I need to think of, at least, the better I am at doing those things. So when I was scheduling doctor appointments for myself, which is important and necessary, in my head, I'm like, I got to make sure I take care of that doctor appointment while I'm trying to do the work. And then the work wasn't getting done, or wasn't getting done to the degree I could because I didn't have the focus. So for me, it frees up total mental capacity. But I'll tell you, the first barrier was I needed to learn how to trust others. And that was very difficult for me. So in the beginning, I'd assign something out and I'm like, is it really getting done? I'd be peeking around. When I learned trust, it wasn't in doing the job to my standard. It was that it was being done to their standard, and I was willing to accept that. That was a big change for me. A lot of small business owners are like, well, no one can meet my standard, therefore everyone sucks. No, there's a owner's standard. There's a business standard. We have to release the business to see what the business standard is. And then our job is to be a support structure to improve that if it needs to be improved, or change it if it needs to be changed. So trust was really about release, allowing the true standard to come about so I could observe it, see the value in it, and then give direction as I saw appropriate to bring it to a level that I thought was optimal.
And through this journey, through these learnings, these early businesses, I read it out just before in your bio, you thought you had a lot of the answers in creating a business and became that angel investor.
Oh my God. That's the worst.
You knew we were going to come on to this topic.
Yeah, we could have skipped this one, Ryan. Thank you.
We could have, but I believe it's going to play a role in what you've created for businesses, especially in Profit First. And as you look back at those learnings, the journey, and what happened in losing the fortune you'd been able to build, where do you see the biggest lessons coming from?
Yeah, so the little backstory is I sold that first business, I sold a second business, and I achieved a level of wealth I never expected in my life. I also had a level of arrogance and ignorance I never expected to have in my life. I was like, I got it all figured out. I'm a genius. And I truly believed if I was there, we'd be successful because Genius Boy was here. Well, I then started a business as an angel investor. And my concept was, I'll take the money I have, I'll invest in these businesses, and because I'm here, we're going to be successful. Well, the reality is I had no clue what I was doing. I was arbitrarily giving money to situations that didn't even need money. They needed consults or direction. It was just arbitrary. What was the most, in retrospect, fascinating part was as I saw my money dwindling, I logically saw it going away, but actually started to double down on my efforts. It was this, there's a definition for this phenomenon, but basically when things aren't going your way, we actually double down in our belief that it is. Kind of like when someone loses money on stock and they think the stock's going to go up in value, they actually buy more of it. They say, now I got a better price, it's going to go up. I saw the money going away and I'm like, oh, that means I'm that much closer to huge success. Someone's going to buy this angel investing incubator company, or a major client's going to come my way. But finally I hit the wall or the mountain. I just crashed into it. My accountant said, you're done. Like, you got to declare bankruptcy. or liquidate your remaining assets, which wasn't much. And I did choose that option. I lost everything. And that's the time I had to face my family and tell them what was really going on, because I'd been lying by omission. Like, everything's fine, when it wasn't. It became, for me, the greatest wake-up call in my life. I actually went through depression. I actively share that, not because I'm proud of it, but I feel very compelled. The most afflicted community in the world with depression is entrepreneurs. And if anyone listening in right now is experiencing that, please seek help. We need the best of you. You need the best of you. And there is help to support that. I chose to drink my way through it. Not a good choice. But that was my form of medication. And I was just a dark cloud. But also, it became a seed for change. I find often the darkest moments of our life, when in reflection we look at it, we can see the shining line to it, the silver lining. What I saw was, I really didn't understand entrepreneurship, that I thought I knew the principles, but luck and good timing is not a principle or a process. And that's what I experienced in my prior businesses. I realized I didn't really understand how to be profitable. I didn't understand how to run a business efficiently. So every book I've now written has been inspired by, it's something I need to learn and master for myself. I try to figure it out. And once I get some experience of it working, I try with other businesses. And when there's enough evidence that this does work consistently across businesses, then I'm like, I got to put this into a book and share it with others too. And that's how I became an author.
And that drive for wanting to share knowledge and create these books, how has that propelled you forward now? What's been the impact of that in your life?
Well, I was about to say, I'm a dead man walking. We all are. Life is finite. And I came to this realization that I will be more joyous in life, more successful in life, the more I bring joy and success, however we may define it, to others. So I realized, my God, anything I find that works for me, stop being the guy who tries to hoard it and protect it. I have the secret sauce. Get it to the world. What's so interesting, Profit First is my most successful book, is I found a way to be consistently profitable. And I was deploying it and it was working. Once I shared it, it actually brought more profitability to my business than ever before. When I wrote a book I call Clockwork on efficiency, I've been deploying, but when I shared it, it brought more efficiency than ever before. And I'm like, why does this keep on coming back? And it's like, oh, it's the ultimate enforcement mechanism. Every time I meet with someone and I talk about Profit First, I better, and I do, live by it. If I don't live by it, I'm the biggest charlatan. If I don't live the Clockwork system, I'm this biggest charlatan. So what I teach, I am compelled to do. Ultimately, the teacher is the student. And I'm like, my God, the more I teach of it, the better I become at this. So it's interesting how it kind of reciprocates too.
One of my favorite quotes is, teaching is the ultimate form of mastery. And in what you've done is in sharing that knowledge and putting it out into the world, I feel like creates a greater win-win capacity for people. And there's something that you mention as kind of part of the book, and I'd like you to explore it a little bit more here and bring some awareness to it here, is entrepreneurial poverty. And you've seen and how you've seen this play out in the businesses that you've had or the businesses you've worked with.
Yeah, you may only be maybe cut off, but on my wall right behind me it says eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I'm in my home office right now, and I have one at work, and I have that same sign there. I have it everywhere I go. It's my life's purpose. And it by the way, it didn't start off with this quippy short term eradicate entrepreneurial poverty, but there was this compulsion of being through struggle and knowing the other side. And there's this weird perversion that happens in the entrepreneurial space. As much as I'm struggling, I can't say that. Could you imagine I come to you, Ryan, saying, hey, I provide, computer services. By the way, I'm almost out of business. I can't pay a single thing in, my household expenses. I'm dying here. Can't wait to work for you. That diminishes the enthusiasm. I have to say, we got this. We're an amazing company. Everything's perfect. We'll deliver as we promise. So we have to put out this face of success even when we're struggling. The other thing is, we all want to achieve, or many of us do, financial freedom through our businesses and personal freedom. Do what we want when we want. And yet, most of us will forever be in the struggle of not enough money, surviving check by check, and trapped by the business, working all the time. That gap, those gaps, that's entrepreneurial poverty. My commitment is to make that vision a reality. And it's also self-serving. The more successful you are, in all definitions of it, the more you contribute to yourself, to your family, to your community, to your country, to our globe. I win by you contributing. And so that's why I'm on such a mission that every entrepreneur I can touch, I want them to win, because it starts this cascade effect. And selfishly, I'm one of the beneficiaries of that.
There's an element here that's in play but not spoken about yet, and that is when you originally started the business, or the first businesses, it feels like there was a chase for money. You know, for the boss, I'm going to stick it in your face, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Now, eradicating entrepreneurial poverty and the rest of your books that you've written, how does actually following a path of personal impact and impact you want to have feel different to the pursuit of money and finances?
Yeah. It's funny, in retrospect, that stage, I'm embarrassed about my behavior because it was about making money. I was a dick. I wanted to show off my success, and I thought I was better than other people. And I regret perhaps the most of all of it. Today, those things are all ways to sustain what I'm doing. So those elements of exposure and income and all stuff are ways to sustain it. But for me, the root of joy is that I get more satisfaction than anything on this planet when I get to speak with someone I was at Be Exponential, the event. People came up to me and shared how something I've done has served them in some capacity. I get emails literally every hour. I get at least one, maybe two emails from someone somewhere in the world that's been served. And for me, that is the ultimate fuel. I think as I wrap up this experience on this planet and I'm in my final years or days, I don't think I'll be reflecting on, I made X dollars. I think I'll be reflecting on, I helped change someone else's life for the better, or maybe more than one person. And that, just thinking right now, it gives me goosebumps. That's where the real joy is.
I can see the emotion in your face as you're saying.
Yeah.
I love that the impact is here, and something I'd like to touch on is, what does money feel like to you now? Since, as you mentioned just before, it's a source of sustainability.
Yeah.
That's a tongue twister to get out on a podcast.
Yes, source of sustainability. That's why S's, yeah.
And through this kind of adaptive mission and what you're doing and the impact you're making, how does money feel to you now, and the ability that it has to support you in this?
Money, to me, is still a very big deal, meaning it's a mechanism, it's a leverage, it's a tool to amplify things. Because of the income my businesses generate and so forth, I can do things at a bigger, more impactful level than I could before. It also affords me a lifestyle of comfort as I define it for myself and my family. And that's a big deal. When I don't have financial worry at home, when we have the freedom of choice, when we're not burdened by necessities for survival, my God, does that free me up to do the impactful things I think I can do. So I think money is absolutely critical and important. The funny thing is, the part that's gone away is the show off it, this whatever. Like, I get this creepy feeling every time I see a video of someone like this, to me, this bullshit personal jet behind them, and like, oh, look at my car, look at, they need to show trophies. Now, here's the thing. I think a personal jet is great if that allows you to live in a way of comfort and service. I think then, gosh darn it, you should have like 10 personal jets if you can be of greater service. But when I felt compelled in my past to show effects, to say, look at how great I am, I was saying there was something wrong about me. There's a saying, I think it was Margaret Thatcher who said this. She said, if you need to say you're a lady, you're not a lady. If you need to show you're successful, you're not really successful. So money is a great lever. I just don't think it's about show-offedness.
Yeah, I love that, and the role that ego plays, and that's a whole kind of rabbit hole that we could explore, but
Sure.
just not on this episode.
Yeah.
Because I do want to touch on Profit First now as the book that you've written and the system and the process that you've built around it, because it's not just a book. And for the people that are unaware of this, it's a whole system. It's a process. It's actually a network
Yeah.
of people as well.
Yeah.
And straight after Be Exponential, you headed over to Perth for your
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what you called it, Profit Con, I think it was.
Profit Con, yeah,
Yep.
it's our members in Australia. We they're all over Australia, but 50 of us gathered there. In the US, we have 370 members, and all over the world we have members.
And just share a bit of the impact and the methodology and the
Sure.
mindset that goes into Profit First.
Yeah, when I wrote that book, it is a standalone book, meaning if someone reads Profit First, you pick it up at your library, you can implement the whole system on your own. And I designed it that way because I didn't want anyone to have any dependency on anyone else but themselves to be profitable, and you can be. The core principle is this. It's the pay yourself first principle applied to business. So at home, when you have income coming in, we've been told take a percentage of that first as your retirement, your future savings, your protection, and it's the greatest savings mechanism. In business, when the money comes into business, we need to take a predetermined percentage as profit to serve the business, to protect the business, and to reward the shareholder, the owner, you. And so that's a core principle. We do it through multiple steps, and I don't want to belabor it, but the essence is this is run at your bank level. And the reason you do this is it's a behavioral intercept. So I'll give context of why this is so important. Because some people say, I could just make a spreadsheet and track this. You could, but it won't work. I could do my accounting system. You could, but it won't work. We have to intercept our behavior. So it was about 12, 13 years ago, I looked in the mirror and said, I got to work out. I got to work out every day of my life to sustain my health, and I'm not doing it. And I got to change this. At first, I said, I'm going to use willpower, wake up in the morning and work out. And I did for one day. I noticed very quickly I'd wake up, go to the bathroom, drink a cup of coffee, read the news, and I'd be skipping my workout. But it was in that observation of wake up, go to the bathroom, make coffee, I saw a consistent pattern. So I inserted an intercept. I put my sneakers on top of my toilet seat. So I'd wake up in the morning. The only way I could use the bathroom was by grabbing my sneakers. And that was enough momentum to put them on my feet, which was then enough to walk me down to the gym and work out. And it became transformative. I work out, including this morning, 5 days a week consistently. I do take 2 days off. 5 days a week, those sneakers are on the toilet seat. With Profit First, we do say your bank because of the entrepreneurs I've interviewed. Almost everyone logs into their bank account with some regularity to see what kind of balance they have. If you do that, that's awesome. We're going to have accounts, multiple accounts set up at your bank that when money flows in, it's going to be carved up to these different accounts so you know it's pre-intended use before you spend a dime. And that is how you start to assure you'll be consistently profitable.
And just share some of the impacts that you've seen with that, with the people that have implemented this. And I've done it myself. If you don't mind, I'd like to just share something very quickly.
Sure, yeah.
In the past, just over 12 months, I read Profit First, consumed it twice, loved it, and actually implemented the system that you've just mentioned on my own at a bank level, opened a separate account in a separate bank, all those sorts of things. And this year I got my tax bill. That's fine, because normally there would be a bit of stress around that. There was zero stress. I thought,
yes,
it's bang on. Like, that's it. Tax paid in full. It's done. And
it feels so good.
It was such a good feeling to have that. And I wanted to say thank you for that.
You're welcome. You know what I thought would be, I would get the most emails from people when it came to profit distribution time. They're taking out the profits. The most emails I get are when tax time comes around. And it blows my mind. It still does. People call, email. I've had messages, people in tears saying, I just got my tax bill and I paid the whole thing. The business paid for it. I can't believe this is the best day of my life. Profit First is all based upon these behavioral principles. And there's one thing called loss aversion. Loss aversion is if you get money and then you have to pay it in turn back out as a tax, we feel a sense of loss. It's painful. But the business reserves on our behalf, even though it's the same money, because the business reserved it on our behalf and then distributes it, that loss aversion goes away and we feel relief. So those emails and those kind of communications are the best. I hear it from everywhere. I got an email from a business in Canberra, outside in the bush. And they were, I think, raising horses. This was a couple that said their financial situation was so dark that their marriage was in jeopardy. And they said they implemented profit first. Nothing changed in the business, which also means everything changed. It's just at a very low subconscious level. They took their profit first. They brought back financial security. They said, and they started working on their marriage, and their marriage is the best it's ever been. What I found is interesting of that story and stories like that is financial insecurity is one of our core insecurities. If that's compromised, everything else above it starts crumbling on that weak foundation. So it's stories like that just blow my mind. And one last little story comes to mind. There's a baseball team in the U.S. called the Savannah Bananas. They have international notoriety now.
Yeah.
I've
heard of them. Yep.
International notoriety. They're early implementers of Profit First. Jesse Cole, the founder, and his wife implemented it. They found that by taking their profit first, they didn't have enough money to maintain the scoreboard, this big electronic scoreboard. And they said the right thing, instead of saying, screw it, we're not going to be profitable, they said, well, this is what's telling us we have to be profitable. We have to get rid of the scoreboard. How do you run a business without a scoreboard? They said, oh, we'll use the audience. And they took people and they're walking out in the field with a score. And that started this cascade effect. Now, they're genius innovators and they're the ultimate marketers. So Profit First didn't cause this, but it did help facilitate it. They started innovating everywhere. Now they have a Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus, or maybe it's the Harlem Globetrotters version of baseball. They are wickedly profitable. They're wickedly popular. And it's triggered by controlling how much money is available for expenses and taking your profit first.
And the other thing that I found, and having spoken to a couple of people about this that have implemented it as well, is the restriction in operating expenses, because you've got your profit, you've got your payroll and all those sorts of things covered, is it forces innovation.
That's right.
And it forces change,
That's
whether
right.
you like it or not.
Yeah, particularly if you don't like it. Yeah. So money allows us to be dumb. Money is a great amplifier of who we are. So if we come from a mindset of not being innovative and just we're going to follow protocol and do what the industry does, more money comes in, we'll actually likely do what the industry is already doing that's not working. It's the lack of money that forces us to sustain. And this is just human wiring. When we lack a resource, we find ways to sustain. So the lack of money, we find new ways. Then as we become more profitable, we can redirect some of those funds to amplify the way we've re-innovated or changed the industry. And that's what happened with Jesse Cole and Savannah Bananas. That's what happened perhaps with this company in Canberra. As it happens with many companies. When you redefine the industry, you become the new industry, the new standard, and that is a game changer.
It certainly is. And just on that note, I'm going to end our conversation here on a high, because I do know that you've got another conversation to jump to, but that's all right. I truly appreciate you being a guest on the BX podcast, sharing your insights, sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. Can you share with people just a little bit more about where to find some more information on your books and working alongside you?
I love to. Thanks for the opportunity to share that. And it's just been a joy being with you, Ryan. The place to go is Mike Motorbike, as in motorcycle.com. And the reason is that it will forward you to my name. My last name is Michalowicz and no one can spell it. So Mike Motorbike is the only G-rated nickname I've ever had in my life. So I got the domain. All the resources are there for all my books. You can get what I call the implementer chapters. So instead of getting just fluff, you can get, for any of my books, free chapter downloads of stuff that you'll see results with. So try before you buy. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. That stuff's up there too, all at mikemotorbike.com.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Mike, for being a guest on the podcast. It's been a joy to have you here.
Likewise. Thank you.
That wraps it up for today's episode of the BX podcast. You can get more of the show by simply tapping the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. To join us at a live and in-person or online event, head over to bxnetworking.com/locations. That's bxnetworking.com/locations to find a meeting near you. We look forward to talking to you next time on the BX podcast.